Yeah, how I became interested in guitar was so long ago that's whether or not my memory is like making the story more interesting than it actually was. Part of it was my sister got a guitar for Christmas, which then naturally like led me to want just to like copy my sister like usual. But I was interested in music in general and music making. And so that's kind of what it came down to was an electric guitar for Christmas, and then kind of then started my obsession with all things guitar related, any guitar music. But I was always very interested in the music that my parents had around the house. Like they listened to guitar music, the Beatles and the Rolling Stones, and a lot of that, especially those early recordings, is extremely derivative of American blues, if not directly American blues songs. So that kind of started that off. And then when you carve your own path into listening to music, most teenage boys, I would say, end up somehow at Jimi Hendrix. And then that is, again, a direct link back to blues and blues music. And so then kind of began this idea of the search. Like you could go back to like, there's a song that Jimi Hendrix does, the Rolling Stones do, but like someone did it 20 years before they did, and then to learn that someone did it years before Muddy Waters did it, and just to like this idea of all this mystery that's around the music. I think that's really what got me hooked in it, because there's not a lot of documentation, and the recordings were hard to find, and this was obviously before the internet, but you had to go hunting, you had to search through books and search through CDs at stores or at the library, and so I enjoyed that part of it. But then like once you found the song or whatever, like the sounds that came out of that, it was like nothing you were hearing on the radio. And it just like had this immense, like just deep connection. I could, even if I didn't understand what was being sung about, I could, like there was just a deep soulfulness to the music, which I was like, I want to understand more about where this is coming from and why and who these people are, who these people were. My initial influences were a huge variety of music. I think in the mid to late 1990s, the radio still had a lot of great guitar-driven rock and roll bands like Pearl Jam and Nirvana and whatever. So like that was the stuff that I was loving at home or loving with my friends. We could commune about that music, and I loved it. But then I had a smaller community of friends, probably like two pals who we could talk about blues and like the mystery and like all this sort of stuff with. And so they were also guitar players and bass players. And so we kind of learned together, and like that was a small community, yet was one where we could try new things and fail, and try new things and succeed, and try new things and fail. Together it was safe like that, and we all were pushing each other to be better at what we wanted to be better at, which was playing music. And sometimes I'd try singing and it was awful, and then I just wouldn't want to sing ever again. And they're like, let's try to play this song. And so like that sort of community was a huge inspiration and a gift in a whole lot of ways. So apart from that, I was in a really great place, like with supportive friends, but then friends' parents. We were allowed to play music loudly in the basement and in the garage and in the backyard, and again, I think that was super important, and to be in such a nurturing environment like that. I didn't have a lot of access to seeing live music, and so I think I just had to make it what I thought it was, and that maybe sent me down some wrong paths or just different paths. But there was a lot to listen to. And then I had one particular teacher named Joel who was in a band, and he was like an older guy, and he was kind of the first like guy that sat in front of me and like sang. For the longest time I felt like singing was embarrassing or tough to do and like not a typical activity for a boy or something like that, you know. So to like have a guy play guitar and sing soulfully like to me or with me in a like a really intimate setting, in this guitar lesson setting, like that was a huge like eye opener for me to like learn that like people do this and like this is how it's done, because music was never something that was like around my family apart from records. So to see and experience people doing that firsthand was super important. I don't think so. I mean, no, it's not. But it's not going to sound like it used to, you know? And jazz isn't going to sound like it used to. And that's normal. In fact, that's preferred. You know, I think that's good. It's changing. And there are people that approach the blues and want to preserve it and play it just like it was played. And those people are my friends, and I appreciate what they do, because that's also very important. But I think in general, though, like people that are taking the time and effort to do that are less and less. But the music continues, but it's going to be different. I mean, it was in the heyday of the blues. It was maybe not necessarily a welcomed art form and by the masses at that point, you know. So it's changing, not dying, just like all music is, I would say. What's my creative process? At times I wish I had more structure. I wish I had a process that I could just like engage in, and the end result would be a song every single time. And that's not where I'm at currently. I would like to make it a practice. It's kind of willy-nilly, you know. It's almost like a if you're out in the wide open spaces like a prairie or whatever, and you can like see a thunderstorm rolling in. Like sometimes that's how it is. I'm in the yard or driving or just playing guitar in the basement, and then I can just like see this like, oh, here comes the song. I still, you know, like, and then the thing is to be able to prepare for it, you know, to be able to like carve out the time. Maybe it's going to be the next hour that I'll need to like ride that wave of creativity or whatever it is. So it's been sporadic, you know, like when the creativity is present, that's when I have the time, hopefully or usually, to work on it, somehow at least record some of the ideas and then be able to revisit them and rewrite. And then what the specific message that comes from those moments of creativity is, sometimes I don't really know, but sometimes the initial creativity isn't that great. Like maybe it's musically great, but not lyrically great. And then you can go back and work on it and be like, what conscious angle do I want to take with this? Yeah. I don't do that. I tend to not be at my most creative first thing in the morning or the middle of the night. I tend to be my most sleepy then. Yeah. For me, just such an amazing and rewarding place to be, and I'm exceptionally grateful for the opportunity to be able to do this, and to have this be my job, my work. I'm just very grateful for that. I love traveling, and I love meeting people and carrying stories in between people who often know each other, you know, like whether it's club owners or bar owners or art gallery owners or other musicians, and to see people at different times and share stories amongst each other and kind of keep everyone connected. It just feels like that's the way it was, and the way it used to be, and in a lot of ways the way it should be. Like people should share stories through people and not email, and so that feels good, and like that's like a role that I have in society, which might be pumping it up a little bit. But that feels really good. As far as what I would tell people, this one's a tough because it's so individual. Like you just gotta I've found I just need to do what I need to make this work for me. Like this is not what I've been able to figure out is not like some one size fits all. Like this is what you need to do to like play music for a living. So I'm hesitant to give like a ton of advice in that way, other than I feel like the idea of a lifelong pursuit is good, and like just because you didn't become famous when you were like 19 or 20, like a lot of your heroes may have, like that doesn't mean it's not gonna happen, or what you have to say isn't worthwhile. And you can always get better at your instrument, and like the idea of practicing your instrument is it's something that is working inside of you, just the idea of practice, whether it's a spiritual practice or like a yoga practice or a faith practice, and like practicing with your instrument, I think helps you get in touch with yourself. And so I encourage people to do that, but also just to like slough off rejection, because there's a ton of it, and it's not personal. It's just like timing and like success, and at the same way, like slough off some of your success. Like just because you had a big show doesn't mean you're like big time. Like so much of it is luck and privilege, and so like just keep going and like try to tell a story and be a person involved in society and culture, because that's what's most important, and like nobody wants to. Anyways, so your failures don't mean a whole lot, and your successes also don't mean a whole lot, and just keep being, just stay focused and keep being you, and hopefully keep improving on your craft, because like that's ultimately what people want to come see, is you and your craft. I love all the parts of Minnesota, but I especially love all the parts of Minnesota that aren't the Twin Cities. I love the Twin Cities, that's where I grew up, but I find there's that idea that like all the culture like goes to one place and like that's where it happens is not true, and it's unfair. And so the efforts that are happening all around the state and all around the country and all these communities to bring people together and share stories and tell stories and create new stories, it's such an honor to be a part of those efforts. And so that was why I immediately said yes to come out and do this. It's so fun to try to do it, and an honor that someone considered what I have to contribute possibly as helpful or interesting. So I hope that's the case.